Okay, with Megan Breen, Serpentine Pink is the feature film. We just talked to your director, or I just talked to your director a few days ago. So the podcast will go before this one, but I got a lot of information about your film. I thought it was fantastic, kind of origin story, but we can rehash a little bit because you wrote this as a stage play first, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And it showed and it played like it was produced. How many showings did you guys do?
Well, it started out as a reading in 2010 in Chicago, or I wrote it in 2010, and then it started out as a reading. My director friend in Chicago, Chris Peak, basically commissioned me to write it for his kind of Halloween show, like a short version of it.
Okay.
And then I just did a long version of it. And yeah, we did a festival production of it in Los Angeles in 2013 at the Son Assembly Company Creation Festival. So I think there were probably about maybe 10 performances, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a wild, wild experience production.
So okay, well let's go back because you did kind of did it as a reading, but what kind of inspired you to keep writing, exploring the story?
Well, it just kept growing because Chris, the director of the theater company in Chicago, he's this great way of just inspiring wild ideas. And so I started out, he said to adapt it from a Grand Guignol short play, a Maurice Lavelle play called The Last Kiss. And he said, keep everything, you can do whatever you want, but just keep the acid attack. So that's where it started from. And it was meant to be a Grand Guignol kind of like shock and horror theater type play. And then I always wanted to write something in the Mojave Desert. I always wanted to write a desert noir because the desert in California is such a major character of a lot of stories and a lot of movies, obviously. And so, yeah, it just grew from there. And then I started to get more and more inspired. I have these incredible inspirations and collaborators with the cast in the play. The more I started to write poetry inspired by the music and the world of the play, the more the characters came into fruition. And so it just grew from there. Like Sabina Zuniga Varela and Kristin Condon, the leads in the play, I mean, in the play and in the movie,
Yeah.
I started writing it for them. And then I started writing it for O-Lan Jones, the legendary actress and composer and director. I saw her as the seer, the psychic. And so we'd had all these personal relationships before. So they were very encouraging. We did a reading at USC. And then we just said, let's do this for this festival. Let's submit this to this festival and just kind of create it as we go along. And we brought along my dear friend Nathan Singh, who is another visionary director who was very supportive of the wild and weird, kind of surreal visual vocabulary and poetic language. And O-Lan was very encouraging of that kind of 70s style of theater that was very rigorous and gritty and very intimately emotional. So it just grew from there because everybody was so encouraging and they said it was like they hadn't heard this type of language before or the style before or just not in a long time. So that's kind of how it kept growing and growing and we just saw more and more possibilities with that little the festival as well.
Wow. So it just started off as somebody like a friend of yours wanted you to write something
Yeah.
like a reading, and then it kind of now it's a feature film.
Yeah, wild, crazy. 10 years, I think, 10 or 11 years from the beginning to the movie. And it had a full production at University in Virginia. That was amazing. And yeah, it was the journey of it has been so incredible and inspiring to see.
So we'll get to the film in a second, but how about the shift from the stage play to the screenplay? How was that transition for you?
Well, I took a few classes. So the master's program at USC that I went to was mostly focused on theater, but I had some classes in the cinema school. And so I'd written a few features before, but nothing like this. And my poetic dialogue and the more abstract way of storytelling that I like to do, the kind of supernatural kind of mind-bending type stuff. That was the hardest thing to kind of economize the poetry to make it more of a more visual. Even though it was originally visual, I think that was the hardest thing was to write down exactly what I was seeing. So screenplay, you have to say, okay, what is literally happening? What are
Yeah.
you seeing? Well, I mean, I think you can do whatever you want with the screenplay, but the norm of it is that you have to say
Show,
what.
don't tell. Show, don't tell.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was probably the hardest thing because my brain works more abstractly, more magically. So
Okay.
it worked out really well because the cast just knows me so well. They know what I'm trying to do so well, and the fact that we were able to get them all for the movie really helped. But I would say that was the hardest one was economizing the poetry and kind of distilling it to what activates the action in the movie. Because so much of like what the director Vivian and the cinematographer and all the designers, their their visual their visual design and everything was so poetic already that to have more poetic literary language would just be almost too saturated with the mystical. So how do you make it like a little seed of something mystical instead of just
Yeah.
way too much? That was the hardest thing, I think.
But you're also I'm assuming you're aware of the budget as well. So you
Oh
have to
yeah.
make sure that you're not you don't need a whole crew for the desert scene, I guess, right? Like you don't like you got to make sure that you're writing for kind of a certain budget, one would assume.
Yeah, and well, honestly, in theater, I feel like this can be true for film as well because it's experimental or it's labeled under experimental. They can in theater you can do basically whatever you want, especially with what I was describing when I was working with O-Lan. So O-Lan in the movie who plays the psychic Andra, she directed one of my plays at school, and that's how we met. And so I set that play in the ocean. And so she just there was nothing, no concerns about budget, nothing. It was just a lot of fabric and imagination and lighting. So if you work with the right people, you can have and the imagination, the budget doesn't necessarily have to be a constraint on the imagination. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not like demanding that we have, these the exact Pioneer Town Motel or whatever. I had to change that to a more generic sounding name. And so stuff like that, of course, I'm aware of. But in terms of imagination, Vivian was really great about being like, can we, because in the original script, it was a doe deer, a mother deer, and then it changed to a fawn because she got this really great, she found this incredible prop of a fawn. And so we had to think about, okay, how do we change the script to navigate around all the meaning behind a mother deer? Now it's changed to a baby deer.
Yeah.
Uh, so that kind of thing, we were really collaborative about that and about how navigating how that affects motivation and storyline and metaphor and everything. So yeah, that's how that informed to that.
Okay, so let's talk about so you helped produce the film, and then you when did you first meet Vivian, who directed it?
So Vivian and I met on Zoom a few times when Ron Hanks, our line producer, he had worked with her before on another project, that another film that was very much about the weird desert life. And she's from New Mexico, so that she knew that vibe, and she actually was very familiar with Olan's work as well. So she knew what I was going for. And so we just talked on Zoom a few times when we were trying to, when Ron and Kristin and I, and we're trying to find a director to match. So we'd met on Zoom, and then I think the first time we met in person was at the premiere in Los Angeles. But it was mostly Zoom and phone calls. She would call me in the middle of the night when they were shooting because I wasn't able to go to the shoot
Oh, you
in.
weren't there for the shoot. Okay.
No, it was like right in the middle of. It was right smack in the middle of COVID, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't able to get out there. So it was so, but she would call me in the middle of the night and be like, "Oh, can we change this line?" Or can what do you think about this color of the truck? Is this color of the truck okay for this? So that's how we kind of developed our relationship. And then, yeah, we met at the premiere in September of 2021, I want to say.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. And then like so then you just basically because she talked a lot like how this is like her like she's obviously very experienced in the industry. She
Mhm.
like we talked at length about the Food Network and but this was like her real kind of introduction to feature film.
Yeah, yeah, because she'd done a few shorts. She's produced, like you said, a lot of TV, and this was her first feature. Did an incredible job with, especially something that's so challenging, narrative wise.
And you guys brought back the actors. So tell me like so then they were good to go for the feature.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky and blessed to have them. The original four, Michael Harris, O-Lan Jones, Kristin, and Sabina. And then they added Joy Nash to play the lover character. And then I believe his name is Gregory. He did the voice of the truck. So those two were new, but yeah, the original four, the core four, have been there since 2012. So I was so lucky I'm so lucky to have somebody believe in my weird voice to go along with the ride for so long.
You involved in the editing at all?
No, I mean, I got to see the edits, and I think there were a few, yes, I mean, I think there were a few times where I would, just make a suggestion about something, like a few times, but I wasn't, no, it was just our editor, Sean, and Vivian, who were doing the editing. But we did get to look at the edits and give feedback a few times, but I haven't done that in a while. But
So like it must be interesting because like the film we talked about like it's like a lot of handheld, a lot of very much like in your face because
Mhm.
it sets the tone of the film with these two characters, right? Where there's
Right.
the trauma, there's love, but there's this distance, obviously. Like in the first scene is really between the two of them is like it's like a 10-minute scene through a door, right? They're not even in the same room together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the intimacy, I thought they captured the intimacy of that really well. And yeah, yeah, I believe yeah, never mind. I was gonna say what the editing was for that, but I'm not sure exactly.
So,
But
but
yeah,
in the stage play, well, like, how was it for you? I guess the big question is that how was it for you to like to watch it for the first time? Kind of like this kind of story that's been in your head for 10 years, and then you saw it on stage, and then now it's like a movie.
yeah, it was so incredible and wild and like a dream, like a total dream. But I knew that they would come up with something incredible because I just trust those actors so much, my Sabina and Kristen.
Yeah.
They're my dearest friends, and yeah, it's so fascinating to think about something that you conjure because the story's so personal to me, and it's so much about the poetry of trying to make poetic a very visceral feeling, and then it's like alchemy, really. It's like alchemizing something from nothing, right? So something that starts as a little inspiration, a little poem. So I wrote a poem called Serpentine Pink while I was doing this that became Sabina's character, Jamie. And then just to see it just live on screen and then evolve as well to have the different evolutions that's different from the play and then see how it could expand. I think the expanse of it was the most surprising and the most awe-inspiring, wonderful was seeing that actual desert because we did Nathan in the original festival production and then our director in Virginia at the college production, Ricky Martinez, they did a great job of creating that visceral experience on stage and creating the scope, but there's nothing like seeing it on screen when you're there. I mean, I can't believe Ron got all those locations in Joshua Tree in the Mojave Desert. It's just such a special place that it's like the expanse of it to be able to replicate that lighting, or not to replicate, to have that lighting and to capture that void, that isolation, but then also the magic of it was so wonderful. It was so, yeah, it was so affirming of seeing that my weird voice could be alchemized into something so grand.
Gotcha. Yeah, and like, but like we were talking because these you're the performers, they knew they knew the story, right?
Mhm.
So she was talking about like how there wasn't much or any rehearsal because they knew it so well, right? So it was an interesting kind of shoot where like lots of dialogue, obviously, and then there's like, but then they just had it. They were on book because they performed it, right? So they so many times.
Yeah, yeah. The characters, it became such a part of them that they could just pick up. And I really I'm grateful to them for that, to just knowing the work so well, to be able to just pick it up because the shoot was very short
Yeah.
considering it. So to they had to know their lines really well because you have to go and be done and then move on. And so, especially with something that is dialogue heavy, it was really important that they know it as
A lot of
well.
long shots too, right? So one, like the way they shot it, like they, like it's a lot of long shots. Like even the car, there's like a, just like they just like one bad line, they have to start over again, right? So
Yeah.
lots of focus pulling with the handheld camera. Like
Yeah.
it's a nice effort, but they, yeah, they're kind of together, and then but the first scene they're like, yeah, I found that interesting. It's just like, yeah, they're just like, it's just about how people deal with trauma and
Mhm.
then how to have a relationship when when you're dealing with trauma, right?
To be able, and for them to be able to go to those dark, deep places when you're in an indie shoot like that
Yeah.
was just so admirable. And to just be vulnerable like that and to be able to move on, and they're just such pros. So so yeah, that was very inspiring as well.
Because like I was referring before, it's like it's almost the opposite in a general sense of a stage play because it's like the camera's right in their face.
Yeah.
There's no like false like line or a false kind of action. It's like the audience sees it. They know consciously that something's off, right? And then they takes them out of the film. So
Yeah, and I think this stage play the helped with that because they were used to the intimacy. So the version that we did the festival was in a very small theater, and we did it in the round, and we considered it immersive. So we wanted it to be like they were in the hotel room with them.
yeah,
So they were used to that kind of intimacy, that type of closeness, the claustrophobia of that motel room. And Olen's done so many films that she was able to navigate through that easily as well. And then also just it was really awesome that we had Elizabeth Hodgman Hanks do the cinematography, to have somebody who is a woman and who's sensitive to that, the way that the lens films and views women, especially during the moments of trauma, the moments of hypersexuality. So that was really important to have a cinematographer who was very conscious and sensitive of that. So that was really vital that she was there and she had that experience and approach.
yeah. She told me that they storyboarded everything, so everything was like every scene was mapped out.
Hmm.
They didn't tell the actors, so the actors just got the stage. They did some blocking and then they shot.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's so cool. Like it's like I like this experience where like even with you, you kind of said it was personal. You don't have to get too much into it, but it's like this has stayed must have stayed with you like for a long time. So there's a lot of you in this in this film.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And it was and everybody else as well. It's this great melting pot, or whatever metaphor you want to use, about the combination of, or the mix of everybody's collective trauma and joy and love together, wildness together. But yeah, to see something, so that's why I was so moved by the feedback video that I saw of you guys, because I was like, wow, this is anytime anybody's moved by it, it's just so affirming because it is such a personal story, and it's very moving to see that the catharsis that happened while writing it could happen for somebody else as well. Because it is, I don't think it's that weird, but I've been told that it's kind of a weird movie or a weird story or a weird way of telling stories. So it's fun to find other weirdos.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I guess we would call it original, but yeah. Or
Original. Okay, I like that better. Yeah, original.
yeah, original take on trauma, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's like that's like it's like we haven't even I'm gonna sound like a cliche, but we haven't even in certain terms of storytelling and trauma, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Like it's like
Yeah.
because emotionally, like from humans have been hiding it for so long, right?
Right.
So many cultures have been like not talking about it. Now it's like
It's
coming out
opening
in
up.
some ways,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
The irony is that this is the thing we should be talking about the most, right?
Exactly. And I feel like this movie is a great, and that's what because I have a theater company with Kristin and Sabina as well, and our original director Nathan, where that's what the goal of this story originated from, was trying to talk about it and trying to just create a conversation around trauma and how you heal from trauma, and then how do you navigate through the process? Because I think that's one of the main takeaways from the movie is like how do you navigate through it? It's not something that should be fixed and you're done and fine, everything's fine. It's a process. So hopefully this movie and other films, like you said, can start the conversation about what that process is.
Yeah. And because you never like you can't be the old you again. Like you have to like process it, but then you have to be someone new. Like it's like you know what I mean? Like you can't
Yeah.
back to yourself. You have to like if you want
Right.
to keep going, you have to keep going in a new version, right? So
Totally. Totally. And that transformation is so important, like all the transformations that happen in the movie. And that's why I love the special effects that we got, and also the makeup and the design, everything that helped create that transformation in the movie was so great at replicating what was happening internally with that. So hopefully when people watch it, they can feel that transformative power.
yep. They do. Well, let's from my experience, so
Oh, great.
I'm sure you know that too, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
so what's next for you? Are you writing something new? Are you doing, you said you were part of a theater company with the two actors, like you guys working on or making something right now?
Yeah, well, Kristen, the right here,
Yep, yep.
she plays Henrietta and she co-produced the movie. She and I are collaborating. I'm writing a novella. Right now it's a novella about an Irish American succubus and about the duality of the sacred and profane. And we were like, let's make this intersectional, is that the right word? Where we want it to be a podcast series, we want it to be a TV show, we want it to be maybe like an Audible type thing. So, and a play, an immersive kind of experiential ritualistic play. So that's what we're working on now. I'm writing the part for Kristen because Kristen is has Irish heritage as well. And then I wrote a part in it for Sabina and O-Lan as well. So I'm writing more for them. So right now we're just looking at, I have to finish the novella version, and then we're going to look at making a script for like a podcast or an Audible version, and then possibly a experiential play version.
Yeah. So I didn't talk too much about, but O-Lan, she's been around for like, not that but she's got some credits under her belt.
Oh yeah, she's a legend. Yeah. Yeah. I think in terms of the indie film world, she's mostly known for working with Tim Burton. I think
Yeah.
she's done four of his movies and some other experimental movie makers as well. She was also the waitress in the opening of Natural Born Killers, which is kind
I
of a
know.
famous
I
movie.
remember.
Yeah, the pie. Yeah, the pie.
Underwritten movie, man. Like it's like that. I think everybody should be watching that now. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's crazy how relevant it still is.
Yeah.
So
She was the
stuff like
waitress in Seinfeld. She was in an episode of Seinfeld.
Bubble Boy. Yeah.
The
She
Bubble Boy
Bubble
episode,
Boy.
right? She's the
Another waitress character.
she's the waitress in that episode, the famous episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's an incredible opera composer and director.
Yeah.
She calls it a full service artist. She's just does all sorts of exciting creative things. So we're so lucky to have her on our team and excited about our stuff as well.
Yeah. Because when I watched the movie for the first time, I'm like, where do I know that person? It's like that actor is like, who? Like that's I know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Hmm.
And then it hit me with Seinfeld. It was like
Hmm.
where I was rewatching it, and it was like, oh yeah, she's the
So
bubble boy.
memorable.
We were just
She's so
watching, yeah.
memorable.
So yeah. And then yeah, so yeah, Natural Born Killers, yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
then Edward Scissorhands, right? So
Christian, she's at the organ, the super Christian
yeah,
organ player. Yeah,
yeah.
iconic.
And I remember I think I saw her in an episode of Shameless a couple years ago, maybe. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
so many great
she's
things.
doing well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she's in your film, like she's in this film, and she's fantastic too, right? So
Oh yeah. I can't imagine anybody else doing it. She really is. She was incredible too because she has the most poetic dialogue and she literally has to do spells. So the thing like, oh, I just got chills thinking about her doing the spells because she's so otherworldly that she's just able to, the thing that she's such a master at is making those spells personal, like making that poetic dialogue just activate and making it personal, making it make sense, even in a visceral sense, if it's not a literal sense, which is exactly what that part needed. So she was such an inspiration as well.
well, on that note, I hope you keep I hope you make another film too. I hope you keep you got the bug for
Yeah.
this one and you're on your way.
Thank you. Yeah, very excited about being a part of the festival and excited about what's next.
Well, I appreciate your time and let's talk again when you make your next film.
Great. Thank you.